Chair Sutton and members of the commission, we're now live.
Good evening and welcome to the December 18, 2024 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Bob Sutton. I'm the chair, and I'd like for commission members and staff to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Zara Nasser.
Mark Dominiani.
Karen Burdett.
Julie Pelletier.
This is Commissioner Doman.
Cristina Arado.
Michael Galway.
Laura DiPasquale, Historic Preservation Staff.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff, remotely.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight are historic area work permits. Have the work permits been advertised?
Yes, Chair Sutton, they were advertised in the December 4th edition of the Washington Times.
We'd like to begin with historic area work permits that we believe can be approved by, without debate or without any discussion. However, if anyone's here to testify for or against any of them, and you've not given your name to staff, we would appreciate if you would do that now. So we will start with historic area work permit number 1A at 15114 Barnesville Road, Boyds. 1C at 38 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park. 1D at 9 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. 1E at 8804 Old Georgetown Road, Bethesda. And 1F at 24227 Hawkins Landing Drive, Gaithersburg.
Mr. Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with the staff reports based upon the record before us in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels and including any conditions recommended by staff.
This is Commissioner Galway. I'll second.
Oh, not yet.
Got to read them first. Sorry.
Hop number 1087171 revision at 15114 Barnesville Road, Boyds. Hop number 1082111 revision at 38 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1094901 at 9 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 529662 at 8804 Old Georgetown Road, Bethesda. And hop number 1094686 at 24227 Hawkins Landing Drive, Gaithersburg.
Now, is there a second?
I'm going to try again. Commissioner Galway, I second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. All these have been approved, and we appreciate that you have done the work that makes it easy for us to approve these projects. The next item on our agenda are preliminary consultations, and the first one is 2A at 920 Old Buckledge Lane, Boyds. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Chair Sutton. Dan will be giving it, but I'll be running the PowerPoint for us. Let me get this set up real quick.
Mine's
Okay. Dan, I want to make sure, can you see that from your screen at home?
dead.
Ken, thank you.
Okay, great. Just let me know when it's time to advance the slides.
Okay. This is actually a continuation of a preliminary consultation at 920 Old Buckledge Road in Boyds. This is the White Carlin Farm Master Plan site. Next slide, please. So the site consists of a house which was constructed circa 1793, a large bank barn, and associated outbuildings. All of these are contributing structures, although for tonight's discussion, we're just focused on the house itself. This is supposed to be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the Master Plan Amendment that created the Master Plan site. Next slide, please. So again, this is a continuation from a preliminary consultation heard at the November 13th HPC meeting. At the meeting, the applicant presented several additional addresses where the proposed shingles have been installed. And because of the majority of the HPC in attendance had not seen the proposed Brava shingle installed, only the sample that had been provided to the commission members in attendance, the HPC voted to continue this discussion at tonight's hearing, affording the commissioners time to visit one or more of the locations identified in the applicant's submitted testimony. So hopefully most of you or all of you have had an opportunity to do so, and we'll just quickly go through the remainder of the presentation this evening. Next slide, please. So the applicant proposes to repair hail damage on the roof, both to the existing asphalt shingle roof. They propose to replace it with a synthetic shake roof by Brava, and removing 2 sections of metal roofing and install new standing seam roofing in its place. The commissioners expressed no reservations with the standing seam metal roof replacement at the previous discussion on this issue. Next slide, please. So in its analysis in the staff report, staff was guided not only by the standards, but also by Preservation Brief 16, which sort of talks about a framework for analyzing when substitute materials are appropriate on historic buildings, and how to evaluate proposed substitute materials, including what colors and shapes are available, what are the variety of color choices, how stable is the color, will it age or weather the way a natural product would, what is its impact resistance or flame spread rating, what are the installation requirements of the new material, because those may not be the same as the original material. Can the feature be replaced, be custom produced if ready-made ones of the new material are not available or an accurate match? And what is the expected lifespan or warranty? Next slide, please. So again, the proposed material is a Brava cedar shake, which is a synthetic shake. The shingles are provided in 3 widths to provide some size variation in the appearance of the finished roof. And a material sample was distributed at the previous preliminary consultation, and I believe the applicants and their representative also have the samples if the commissioners would wish to examine them in the flesh this evening. Next slide. This is the front of the subject property. There is existing asphalt shingle roof. Again, that's failing due to hail damage. There are some also underlying structural issues with the roof, which would be addressed at the time of removing the existing roof prior to reshingling. Next slide, please. Again, these are just examples of 2 different colors of the shake. We have the aged cedar in the upper left, which is the modeled color that's proposed by the applicants. And then there is the, I believe that's called the natural color in the lower right. Next slide, please. So staff visited multiple sites that had the Brava cedar shake installed. On the upper right, in the upper left rather, you see one example. This happened to be right next door to a house that had a natural wood shake roof on it, so that provided for direct comparison. I believe that was 14 Flame Leaf Court in Gaithersburg. We'll move on to the next slide, please. Staff also noted in the staff report that a Winterbourne master plan site in Boyd's has recently had its cedar shake roof replaced, and you can see that in the images in front of you. Next slide, please. So staff finds that the 2 areas of metal roofing are later additions and are replacing existing metal roof with new standing seam metal roof. This would be eligible for staff level approval as a historically appropriate roof replacement. But staff has been unable to find an instance where the HPC approved any synthetic roofing material on a master plan. There are instances where the HPC has approved synthetic slate for new construction in districts, but not at master plan sites. A reminder, as a master plan site, considerations of visibility are not limited to the public right-of-way. This is for the visibility of the site from any location, including on the site itself. Next slide, please. So staff's primary concerns with the material are its color and its reflectivity. The modeled appearance, which is intended to emulate aged wood, staff doesn't find that to be a convincing substitute under 24A8B1 or 2. Additionally, staff hasn't been able to see a shingle without its sheen. The product representative relayed that part of the reflectivity was due to chemical release applied to the mold, so they would peel off easier, and that the shingles will dull over time. The applicant did provide 2 photographs, which can be shared during their presentation. But staff finds that the most compatible replacement roof would be either a wood shake roof or an architectural shingle roof. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Doman. Of concern here is that this particular residence is a master plan site. If this was not a master plan site, would we consider these shingles applicable? Is it strictly because of the category that this house falls in that is not acceptable? Would it be acceptable on something that just happened to be in a historic district? Thank you.
Based on staff's observations of the material, we don't think it would be appropriate on certainly an existing resource in a historic district. The analysis for new construction or an addition in a historic district would be a little bit different and would likely be district dependent because so many of those have very specific district specific design guidelines. So we can't say, in one district it might be, in one district it might be acceptable, in another district it might not be. But because we're dealing with a master plan site, we're limited to Chapter 24A and the standards as our guiding principles.
Yeah, I was just interested if there's any way the product could be installed so we could get historical information about how it holds up. I mean, would this be acceptable on a non-contributing resource in a historic district?
Well, we haven't had that proposed yet, so we don't know. What I can say is that the applicant did provide us with 6 addresses where we know that the material is up and it can be periodically evaluated moving forward. But that's not going to give us an effective answer for tonight's discussion.
Any other questions for staff? If not, I would invite the property owner and any representative to come forward. The one name that I have is Charles Bergman, but there might be others. So if you can come forward, if you could turn on the microphone and state your name for the record, we would appreciate it. And then we will have all your names, I should say. You'll have 7 minutes for your presentation, and after that, I would hope you would be willing to answer questions. So, welcome.
I am Carol Bergman.
I'm Charles Bergman.
I'm Tom Horan. I represent Brava Synthetic Rooftops.
Tom offered to come to answer any of your questions about the product.
Would you like to make a presentation, or are you just here mostly to answer questions?
We did a presentation last month.
Okay.
We're happy to talk more, but I think we're here to see if you all got a chance to look at the roofs in place and what you thought, and if you had questions. And I think better for us to respond to questions than to rehash what we said before, unless somebody who wasn't here a month ago wants us to go,
Okay, that's fair. We have your presentation, even if I was not here, but I've looked at what happened last time.
And Tom was not here
Right.
last time.
Okay.
So if you would like to get just a top level on the product.
Yeah, and just due to the shortness of time, I'll just be quick. Brava as a company recognizes all of your concerns relative to performance of plastics and what I would consider to be the unknown. There are a lot of bad actors that have come before Brava. Brava's been out since 2008, mostly in the Midwest, and we've truly started to come east over the last 7 to 10 years. I will tell you, Class A, that Dan had mentioned regarding fire, product is Class A. The product also is Class 4 hail impact. So the issue that they have currently will not happen again. The big thing that's happening in the Cedar Shake world, whether it be relative to this conversation or future conversations for you all, insurance companies don't want to insure Cedar Shake roofs across the country. You can't use Cedar Shake roofs in California, Colorado, or Mexico, and of the 32 insurance carriers in Florida, only 3 will recognize Cedar Shake and insure Cedar Shake. So it is becoming a bigger and bigger issue relative to the financial burdens incorporated in having a Cedar Shake roof. Where Brava comes in, 100% recycled content, 100% recyclable. We utilize mineral components to get our color, and those mineral components have already been kissed by the sun. Titanium dioxide is probably the largest sunblock that plastics use. This product is, not going to be the plastic furniture that is on your deck that you're throwing away after 3 years. 50-year warranty, 10-year warranty on the fade. The only reason we put a 10-year warranty on the fade is that's what the industry has currently, and we've matched the industry. But we are labor and material, and we measure that color fade so that it's, whether it's consistent, one product or all of them, it doesn't matter. We will warranty that product. Okay? So wide variety of color palette. I think the color palette that you all have chosen was aged or?
It was aged because it had some of the patina of aged cedar. But there's other options if you don't like the mottled look. There's other options.
And some things that I am doing, I actually represent the Mid-Atlantic. I cover all of Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. I've done these same presentations in the district. We've gotten approved for slate and shake. I'm in the middle of working with the historic preservation team in Williamsburg. We literally just finished a project 1 street off of Market Street, if you're familiar with Williamsburg. I go to a final presentation there in January. We just did a 1907 house in Delaware, historic. So it is going this way. And, we respectfully, ask that you all grant their request. They are trying to, preserve the look of this house. I quite frankly find it kind of strange that we've approved asphaltic for historical preservation, but not a synthetic cedar shake product. That's kind of weird for me, but again, it's your decision there. So I'm available to answer any questions or concerns that you all may have. We've got about 4 minutes left.
Oh, no, we will, no, we can take as much time as we want.
Perfect.
Are there any
I'm here all
questions? Are there any questions? Commissioner Pelletier.
Thank you. When you're talking about it's 100% recycled and 100% recyclable, I thought plastic could only be recycled once.
This is polyethylene,
Okay.
and it can be recycled again.
And do you have some sort of recapture program?
We do. We recapture, first of all, we recapture everything that we produce post-consumer.
But I
Yes.
mean,
Once it's out in the marketplace, that is a harder thing to do.
Yeah.
Because we're not corporately set up that way. We currently are in negotiations with Waste Management to somehow put together a national program that we can utilize a recycled program with, but that is not put into stone just yet.
Okay. I think that's part of my heartburn is the plastic. I mean, I know it's polyethylene, but it's more plastic out into the environment. And you can't make a contractor tear down something and recycle the materials, even though they're recyclable.
There's
So,
far more asphalt going into landfills than there are plastic roof systems. So, but with respect to Brava, we utilize recycled plastics, 100% recycled plastics that have already been consumed and we make them into this.
Is
So-
it, it's post-consumer? or-
Post-consumer.
It is, okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Nasser.
Commissioner, this is more like clarification. You mentioned the 10 years color warranty. So could you please clarify if within 10 years, there's a claim about like the fading of the shakes, you would evaluate it, and if they faded, you would replace? Can you please elaborate
Labor
on?
and material, we would evaluate and replace at our expense.
And if it's past the 10 years, if it's like 12 years, you would not do that?
Not obligated, but listen, I do believe in this company. This company is, you know, from middle America, and they will do things to make it right. Again, that's my interpretation, but by the letter of the warranty, they're not obligated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Commissioner Burdett.
You mentioned that you have already installed this on several historic properties, but were they designated historic properties and under the guidelines of a commission like ourselves or a historic organization within their jurisdiction?
I cannot answer. I think you call it something 24, correct? Is that the designation?
24 is actually our Montgomery County designation. It's under the, we have that's just us.
Got it,
Yeah.
understood.
But there are historic preservation commissions all over the country, usually associated with a jurisdiction, whether it be a city, a county, or even at a state level. There are also conservation easements on materials and properties on most of the major significant historic buildings in the country. And so the question would be, like you said, it was a block off of Williamsburg. I'm assuming that means it's not within the Williamsburg.
Currently, no, but I am
Okay.
in talks with them.
Okay, but you do understand most of Williamsburg has been rebuilt, so
Yes.
it's not actually.
The one that I think, that I brought up at the last meeting, that Fairfax County, that was the historic, it's owned by the county as a historic resource. I'm not sure I have the language
Yeah,
right.
that's Mount Gilead. It's in Fairfax County. It's owned by the Park Authority. It's right off Braddock Road. Brava's been approved. This is a test for Brava to have access to more structures within their network. However, they've run into some snags on some structural issues with that particular building, and the Brava has not been installed. It's sitting on the site, ready to be installed, but has not been completed as of yet. So,
But they've approved it and chose it.
100%. That is correct.
Thank you.
And to your question, I really do not know, but I have no issue, you know, asking that question of the historical sites that I do know that we've done and getting back to you all with that information, or back to Dan and getting him that information.
Any other questions? Commissioner Doman?
It's Commissioner Dolman. One of the concerns that I think staff had was a shiny appearance on it, and the comment was made that this is like a mold release, that when it's manufactured, you need a mold release, and that it wears off. So I'd like you to speak to that a little bit if you could.
Sure. So we utilize, it's high temperature and high compression. Other manufacturers utilize injection molded properties where they will liquefy the plastics and run it through a port into a mold. Our consistency starts out like Play-Doh, warm, but like Play-Doh, and then it gets compressed in a mold, high pressure. I've got to be able to release the material from the mold in order to eject it. And in order to do this, industrial PAM is probably the best way to put it, and it's just a spray that goes into the mold so that we can pull these out quickly. So it does wear off, it does evaporate, it just takes time. But in the manufacturing process, it gets produced, inspected, trimmed, and packaged. So it doesn't really see the sun until it's put up. So a lot of times the samples do come out with a little bit of a sheen, but that sheen does go away.
And in your other homes where this was installed,
Can't see it.
has this worn off? Hey,
Can't
you
see
have,
it.
I mean, it may not be an historic house, but if it was installed, the sheen or whatever that we're concerned about has gone away. Is that
Gone away.
correct?
Cannot see it.
Okay, and then another question for the homeowners. I think there was a mention made that the use of this was supported or approved through the Maryland Historic Trust. Can you speak to that?
The house as a historic resource is on the county list and it's on the state list. And I can't remember if it's on the state list because it's on the county list or if it's on the county list because it's on the state list, but it's on both lists. And we had, and the state gives us guidance and tax credits for work and for maintenance and repairs inside and outside. And we had what do they call it, permits? We had an application in that was ongoing, and we went and said we have this hail damage and we've got these issues, and they amended the current application and said you're approved to do the Brava roof on your current part 2. They have a name for the program.
I think that's very important. Thank you.
Commissioner Doman, this is Rebecca Ballo for the record. I would like to note, again, staff has asked the applicant, several times to give this documentation to us so we can also talk with the SHPO to talk about, specifically what their recommendation was. If this was for a tax credit, something else, and that information has not been forthcoming. So currently in front of you, we don't have any documentation to speak to that.
For the record, I'm not aware of that request. I don't know where, I have not gotten it.
At the last hearing that we had at the preliminary consultation, I know you also spoke to that, and staff said, please give us that documentation. And from Dan's communication back and forth, it would be very useful and very important, for any evidence that you have that you want to present to the commission and the staff, and also so that we can have conversations with our colleagues at the SHPO. So that was mentioned the last time, and I'll mention it here again, that if you have that documentation, it would be useful certainly for the commissioners to evaluate that on their own and for the staff to be able to evaluate that as well.
Okay. We didn't understand that you were asking for that, so we will be glad to give you the communication we've exchanged with the state historical people and their approval of that.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Before I get to you, let me just see if anybody else anybody else? Okay, thank you.
This is a
Commissioner
quick
Nasser?
one. I visited the Fernleaf property. Do you know when was that installed? When the
Which one?
The Fernleaf in Gettysburg?
I do not know when that was installed.
Oh, I think I do. I think about 3 years ago.
3 years ago. I just
The
wanted
red-
to see
The red house that.
the red house, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
about
thank
3
you.
years ago.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burdett?
To follow up on that, I went also out to that neighborhood, and there were several other properties beyond the one that you recommended that we go look at, and they also had this type of product, a shake shingle roof that looked apparently to be the same product. Are you aware of any other Brava roofs out there, and the ages that how long they've been up?
Well, here's what happened. Tom gave us the address of one of the natural cedar shake shingles in that neighborhood. And we went to the neighborhood to look at it. And it looked nice, but it looked kind of new. And we're driving around and we're looking at the authentic cedar shake shingles, and we're looking at different variations and different manufacturers of synthetic. And the red house caught my eye because I could tell if I really looked at it that it was synthetic, it wasn't real, but it looked realistic. And I said to Chuck, I think that that's one of the darker colors of Brava. And I went back to the neighborhood a couple days later, and I went and I knocked on the door. And I talked to the homeowner, and he was an original homeowner. He'd been there for 30 years. He had replaced the cedar shake shingle after about 10 years. He replaced the cedar shake shingle again after 20 years. And then he had, I think he said he had hail damage after like 20, after eight years later. And he said, I got to do something different. And he went out and he found Brava. And he said he was one of the first, and that was like 3 years ago. And he said he was one of the first on the East Coast. And they sent somebody out to make sure it got installed properly. So that's what he kind of set off at the top of his head.
And part of my job is to make sure that jobs do get installed properly, number one. I'm a licensed contractor in the state of Virginia, have been since 2010. The issue I have in certain neighborhoods, Brava's only been here in this particular market for about three and a half, 4 years. It wasn't stocked until 2024 by any major point of distribution. So there are other manufacturers out there that are not Brava. And
Is your product based off of the technology of one of those other
No.
prior?
completely different technology.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions?
Is it possible just to see?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, okay, yeah.
And she's got more. But,
Yeah, I've got one.
So we make this in solids and cavity back. Cavity back is used for
Sir,
steel.
sir, I need you to speak into the microphone. They're portable, though, so if you just pick one up and keep it with you, so we have everything for the record, please.
My wife always tells me I talk too loud as it is. So we make them in cavity back as well as solids. Your solids are used for the valleys and your rake edges because you don't want to see the cavity back from the ground, right? So cavity backs are a lot easier to carry around and use for samples. And there are 36 molds that make up a series. They're all different. That gives you the difference in the butt edge, the front edge. We take actual molds of real cedar shake to make those. It's available in a multi-width, 12s, 7s, and 5s. There you go, thank you. And we make them in multiple colors. We'll even do custom colors.
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Commissioner Pelletier. So this product's only been around since 2008,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
How does it weather? I think one of the concerns that we've discussed is that it won't age like a regular cedar shake roof. I mean, granted, some of them look pretty bad after a while, but the fact that that this product is going to look the same in 20 years as it did on the day that it's installed, I think it's kind of a red flag that it's synthetic. And so that's a question for you. It's only been around for, 16 years. Can you talk about how it ages, or do you not really know?
So first of all, science is a wonderful thing, and they make what they call a weatherometer, believe it or not, to weatherize plastics. And it's high humidity, high UV, and they will stick these plastics in a machine and run them for months on end, nonstop. And it's called cycle testing. So they will cycle it over and over and over again and pull it out, measure it, do it again, do it again, do it again. We still have some of the original products that we've ever manufactured still in some of these weatherometers that we are continually testing, making sure that, what we're doing is right, that we've got the right mix, so on and so forth. Now, The other thing is, if you take a look at our colors, cedar shakes go through an iteration, right? When they start out as kind of the honey color. I'll take one down and pass it around the other side. They start out in like a honey color, and then they go to age a little bit. However, when you're at the beach, they turn gray. Why? Because of salt air. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to emulate the look of the product in this market, and by choosing aged or weathered, it'll look like it's been there for quite some time. It'll look like it should look like if that roof were still on today. And that is the idea behind our color palette. That's why we do what we do. And that's why we utilize mineral colorants to make sure that color fastness stays.
I have a question this time.
Commissioner Radu?
About the aging. Did you notice any, I mean, we were talking before about the plastic slate. And we all know projects where the slates have cupped. Is this something that you notice? Is this something that will happen sooner or later, or what's the story?
Our process is completely different than theirs, number one. Number two, they utilize chemical colorants where we utilize mineral colorants. Our titanium dioxide, and this is documented on our end, is significantly more. And again, that's the sunblock to help protect color, is significantly higher. Also, the cavity back there and the rigidity, I can bring competitors, I can show you competitors' products that are in this market today, and you would see a dramatic difference because the structural ribbing on that does not allow it to pucker and move. My competitors don't have anywhere near the structural ribbing that I do.
Commissioner Burdett.
This is to the homeowner. Now, we appreciate that you want this product, but have you had asphalt shingle and standing seam metal roofing products priced for material and installation, since they would be available for tax credits?
Just ballpark. I mean, no. I mean, we wanted to, we thought that this was the best, the best, most realistic way, the best and most realistic roof. And we wanted to be committed to that until somebody said we couldn't do it.
Can I comment on that as well? So asphaltic shingles, the insurance companies only recognize asphaltic shingles to have somewhere between a 15 and a 20-year lifespan. They do recognize synthetic roofing, my product, to have a 50-year lifespan. So in that, they could potentially put on 3 roofs to my 1. Those products are less expensive, absolutely. Number 2, asphaltic shingles sold in this market today are not Class 4 hail impact. They're not. So they could easily be back in this same process all over again where I am Class 4. So they are trying to do everything they can to mitigate any financial burden moving forward. This is a set it and forget it.
Understood. We appreciate that. Now, of course, this area, while it does have hail, it is not like the Midwest. We don't have massive hailstorms every season. So that, while it is a concern, it is not a major concern like it is in the Midwest.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, my goodness. Commissioner Pelletier.
He keeps talking and I
love
keep
it.
thinking of other things. So you say it's got a 50-year lifespan. How do you know if it's only been around for 16 years?
Just because of our weather testing, and again, we've tested up to 135 years, and it's still going. Again, computer generated,
Right.
but it's a physical machine that cycles it through UV, humidity, wind, hail, everything in this one machine. Again, plastics manufacturers use it, asphaltic manufacturers use it, It is a common piece of machinery in manufacturing.
Okay. And how does it age? You didn't really talk, you talked about your age colors, but you didn't really talk about how the material actually ages.
It ages very well under the testing parameters that
Keeps its color?
Yes, ma'am.
Keeps it, okay.
We warranty up to 400 units. 400 units you can't see with the naked eye. So
400 units.
For Hunter, H-U-N-T.
Oh, for Hunter units. Oh,
units. It's a measurement in color.
Right.
We measured up, we warranty anything beyond 400 units. It falls under our warranty parameters.
Okay. I don't know what a Hunter unit is.
Again, it's something you can
but-
barely see with your naked eye. It's,
All right, thank you.
If there are, Commissioner Dominiani.
I love it.
Question for you about the environmental impact of a product like this. One thing we've noted previously, and there is some documentation of this in the press and scientific community, is that plastic products that are exposed to UV and out in weathering do give off microplastics that find their way into the environment. I'm sure you have a response for this type of question, but it's something I think we're trying to consider around the county in general as this concern of microplastics and pollution becomes a greater question. And I understand that asphaltic roofs give off, their own series of chemicals into the environment too. But I think it's worth discussing as we've considered plastic slate roofs and now perhaps plastic cedar replacements also. If you
I
don't
have a tech bulletin. In fact, this very question was asked of me today. It was also asked of me at the Green Build in Philadelphia that we do not give off any microplastics due to UV and or rain or any type of weather that this is perfectly suitable for groundwater retention. I do have a tech bulletin. I'm more than happy to provide that.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, we will start our deliberations. And what we do is we will give you a sense of what we think about this. And of course, the main goal is to get this project ready for approval as a historic area work permit. And with that, I would welcome anybody to start off this discussion. Commissioner Doman.
This is Commissioner Doman. I read the staff report, and I've heard I was present two weeks ago when you were here the first time I was here. I also, as what do you call it, truth in disclosure, I also visited your house. I did have the opportunity to go out and actually drove out and took a look at your house, and I'm familiar with how it looks currently and the shingles and the situation with the roof and everything that's on it. I support the use of this product 100%. I think we can argue this thing over and over again. I think it's time that we started considering other materials for use on historic houses. I'm a proponent of this. I think the manufacturer has addressed just about everybody's concern, everybody's question here. I think the homeowner has done their homework, has done a lot of research on this whole thing, and I don't think they would put something on their house that they would be ashamed of or would worry about. I think they have spent a lot of time, a lot of effort on this project. I would like to see it go through. I understand that this is a what do you call it, a major contributing resource? What is it? It's a
This is a master plan
master
historic
plan
site.
resource, okay. And I understand that this may be held to higher standards, but I think that this is a good application for it. I would like to see it installed. I'd like to have start gathering some information on how it holds up, to put it on, and then 5 years or 10 years from now, we can come back and say, we have a benchmark, we got something going, let's see how it works. And I have full faith that this product will work, and I support it 100%. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Burdett.
So I'll be the other end of this argument. I cannot support this product. It is not an approved product. This is the first time it's come before us. So it's obviously not an approved product within our commission. We do have a process for evaluating and approving new products to come before us, and it is a length, we've done it just in this past year once, and it took months and months of meetings within the group to get to a point where we discussed a process for approval. We didn't even approve any specific materials. So to allow this one to go through with a single vote is inappropriate. You have a master plan site. It is the highest level of importance in this county. And you have an existing asphalt shingle roof, which you can replace in kind with staff approval and get tax credits for. You could replace it with a shingle roof because that would have been appropriate to the building. That would go through with a staff approval as well with a tax credit. You could apply for the tax credits. You could even apply to the staff and probably to us for a metal roof, either flat seamed or standing seam, for approval, and that would probably get approved, whether it was by staff or through us, and that would be acceptable for tax credits as well. It concerns me that you haven't even investigated these other options. I appreciate you like this material, but you have to be realistic about this is a historic property and it comes with restrictions and guidelines that you must comply with. And right now, this material does not comply. I think it might be worth in the future for the commission to evaluate this material for a non-contributing resource in a historic district based on that district's guidelines. So if you are at the top of the totem pole, that's at the bottom. That would be not much different than putting it on any suburban house anywhere in the county that's not in a historic district. But it would have to still come before us. We would still have to evaluate it as an acceptable, approvable material, and then vote on it. So with all that said, and I'm not knocking your product, by the way, it is not an appropriate product in this circumstance. I went out and I saw the Brava product out in Kentlands, and I saw several other or in this neighborhood, Fernleaf, and several other similar products on roofs. They were all very easy to spot, and this was a cloudy day, so it wasn't even a shiny day. It was a cloudy day, and I could spot them very clearly. And in that regards, it concerns me about the look of the material, and I am concerned about the age and the warranty. So I cannot support this material at this time, and I would recommend that you look at the three materials that would be acceptable and approvable and make your call, make your decision based on the information you provide from that, and the staff can help you make that decision of those three approvable materials.
Anyone else?
I'll go.
Commissioner Nasser.
I don't want to repeat what Commissioner Barrett said, but in general, I agree with her. I'm not questioning the quality of your product, but as she mentioned, this is a master plan historic site, and your product has not been in the market long enough and has not been evaluated by the commission properly. So I don't feel that it's appropriate for this project. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Radu.
Well, I have some concerns about I would like additional information and really about this aging testing you're doing. I am a little more open to the extent that we are replacing an asphalt roof, not a shingle roof. If that was a shingle roof, I would not even consider this. I would just want to replace it in kind, but it's an asphalt roof, so I don't think by installing this type of material would make things worse. So I understand it's a master, but I agree with my fellow commissioners. But I think at one point, we have to also look at this new materials in a more open, with a more open mind maybe, and not wait necessarily for the 15 years to really, and to see how they perform. And that also, I want to say that I saw many substitute materials that didn't perform well, so I do have some concerns.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Well, I think coming in tonight, I was a hard no. And I think getting some feedback from the representative, I think was really helpful. And seeing the samples again, I'm less hesitant now than I was at the start. I mean, I think, I hear you about the cedar shake roofs. I mean, with the way things are going, you know, those are going to be out of favor in not too much time. And the asphalt it's not a great substitute. It's just as bad for the environment as plastic. And I agree with this side of the bench that we do need to be a little more open-minded about materials on these houses, because, you know, the natural stuff is not getting any better. Like, you know, the wood is growing faster, so I'm a little more open to it, and having seen the samples again, I think and the fact that there's so many different molds, and so you don't get that cookie cutter repetitive thing going on the roof, and the different colors, I could support this with a bit of heartburn. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. I commend you for your efforts in trying to convince us as a committee to approve this. I do believe also that it's a good product, and I think it has an absolute application. Unfortunately, given the home, you know, really, and the fact that it is a master plan site, and when you read through the standards for rehabilitation, and it talks about, you know, composition, well, we're not there. Design, we're very close. Color, I think you're close, although there is that question about, you know, a cedar shake roof 5 years in has a different look to it than this product most likely ever will. I assume this is created at some early stage of that cedar shake roof and not halfway through its lifespan. I don't know that for sure, but I did get out and I did look at all of the homes that were on the list. And I was a little disappointed to hear that that red home had been there for 3 years, because when you look right next door, there's a cedar shake roof, and you can clearly see the shine or the sheen of this product compared to that of the roof. So there is a difference. There's no doubt about it. Now, in other examples, it was very difficult. Even I would even go so far as say, given the sunlight or the angle of the sun or the clouds, I wasn't able to tell. So I think it really does a very good job of replicating the roof. It just doesn't quite get there. And the fact that it is a substitute material, I think, as Commissioner Burdett said, it really behooves us to really evaluate that alternate material and make an approval. I think one of the things that was said was that there are some bad actors. And that troubles me. If you had come in here and said all of the manufacturers making this product are in fact making it to the same standard of care that you do, that actually may have made it easier, because then we know that your product and anyone else's will perform in a similar fashion. The difficulty now is we're not only trying to get to a point where we could approve an alternate material, but we're also now splitting hairs between manufacturer A versus manufacturer B versus manufacturer C. And how, as a board commission, do we control that? Because now we have, once we open the floodgates, there's a very good chance every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to try to sell their product or, you know, use their product. So that creates a problem. I think we have some homework to do here, and that is to really evaluate this material as an acceptable a product and make that decision. And then once we've done that, then I think that would allow, this product to be utilized in these types of applications for a master plan site. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I'd like to make another comment. I think perhaps synthesizing some of the remarks of everyone so far, I do think that it's a great product, and it's quite clear the quality when beholding it in person and also touching it here. And I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Brava elsewhere throughout the county, and perhaps even in new construction in some of our historic districts. However, with this being a master plan site, we do have to hold it to the highest standard, and replacing historic materials in kind, or in this case, asphalt with asphalt, I think is going to be the most appropriate to maintain the historic character of such a valuable building. I don't believe that Brava is actually an appropriate application here, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, and last one. I think it looks like a very good product. I'm very impressed with it. I think you've done a wonderful job. I think you've done your homework. Owners, you've done your homework. You've done a wonderful job presenting it. It looks like, I think it's going to be something that we will be, hopefully, in the future, looking at, but I am with the side that believes this is not appropriate for this particular project. It's a master plan site. It is something that I would love to see in the future, because roofs they just don't last very long these days. And I think something like this, like your product, hopefully will be something that we, long after I'm off this commission, will be able to approve. But I think given the house that we're looking at, a master plan house, we don't know a great deal yet, I think, about how this project will perform here. Sounds like it'll do very well, but I don't think we know enough at this point to really evaluate that. And with that, I would be not in favor of approving this at this time. So I think you have a good sense from us. We have one member who is not here tonight. He sent a message that he would not be in favor of it. So I think you have a sense of the commission. You will have, all this information will be available from staff. And I commend you on getting to this point. But I just think we're not quite ready for this to happen at this point. So thank you so much. And we look forward to having this come before us in the future.
Chairman, I'd just like to thank the applicant for all the work and time that they put in on this project. As it looks like right now, this may not fly, but appreciate manufacturer coming in. I appreciate you taking the time to come on in. And you have a beautiful house, and I'm sure whatever you do will work out fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next project is another preliminary consultation, number 2B at 10701 Columbia Pike in Silver Spring. And is there a staff report?
There is, Chair Sutton. We'll just give one moment. I'll also be presenting this one out here, and Dan will be speaking to it. Just give it a second. Thank you. Okay, great, thank you. Dan, can you see it okay?
Great, thank you.
Great.
So this is our second preliminary consultation this evening for 10701 Columbia Pike in Silver Spring. This is rehab of a portion of the Robert B. Morse Water Filtration Complex in Silver Spring. Go to the next slide. So the site was finished construction in 1936. Its two main buildings are Georgian Revival. The remaining structures and buildings are two large Georgian Revival buildings on each side of Columbia Pike. The dam, which is all the way in the upper left corner of the master plan environmental setting, the sediment basin, and a small outbuilding. This is to be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior Standards, and its master plan amendment. And just, this was in the staff report, but from places in the past, says the Robert B. Morse filtration plant is an important in the early history of the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission and the overall suburban development of Montgomery County. The Burnt Mills filtration plant, designed to function as the water supply workhorse of Montgomery and Prince George's counties, was the region's principal source of reliable clean water until the 1950s. At the height of its operation, this ambitious water supply project supplied the region with 10 million gallons of water a day and created the foundation of a water supply infrastructure that significantly influenced the direction and nature of residential development in the 20th century. This WSSC plant has architectural importance as an example of Georgian Revival style architecture and as a period and type of public works design and construction. Although the Morse filtration apparatus has been removed from the site, the distinctive pump houses and dam structures still stand. Next slide, please. So Montgomery County Parks is the applicant with Spring Song Museum as its partner. The applicant proposes to rehab the southern building and its surrounding hardscape and landscape to create the Spring Song Museum, dedicated to Rachel Carson and her life's work, including a large building addition will be constructed for museum operations, removing and replacing the existing windows, and landscape and hardscape alterations, including installing a solar array in the parking lot. Next slide, please. So these are from the 2008 HARE documentation, Historic American Engineering Record, which did measure drawings and photographs of the buildings in 2008. You see the south elevation in the upper left, and the lower right is the eastern elevation, or I guess it's southeastern elevation, which is where really the only changes to the exterior of the subject building are proposed. Next slide, please. So the applicant proposes to construct an addition. It's really an addition and a hyphen, which are to the east of the road, which will limit their visibility. They are proposing a standalone toilet building, which is all the way at the edge of the parking lot, as far away from the building while remaining inside the environmental setting of the master plan. Additionally, there are other trail alterations and walkways proposed, which we'll get into a little bit later. Next slide, please. So this is the first floor of the building. You see the new museum building will include an entrance, bookstore, storage. We have an additional set of stairs. This is where the one elevator is located. And this connects to the existing building on the ground floor. And we can go to the next slide. And this also includes a bridge that connects the upper level to the gallery spaces on the second floor of the historic building. So this is the accessible access point to the second story of the addition is how access is provided to the second story of the historic building. You can go to the next slide, please. So the main changes to the building, the historic building, you see in front of you, they're proposing to remove the window and potentially enlarge the opening to accommodate the bridge that was discussed in the previous slide. And then the aerator, which is the big concrete structure in the right below the window. Thank you, Rebecca. The aerator will be cut down a little bit and incorporated it into the interior space of the museum as part of the rehab right there. Thank you. And then on the ground floor, the existing doorway will be opened up, and that will provide access from the interior of the museum space. Next slide, please. So a perspective drawing from the parking lot without the solar canopy. You can see sort of the hyphen is mostly glazed from this elevation, which helps create a visual separation between the historic building and the larger museum addition. Other materials proposed for the addition are wood siding, aluminum storefront supported curtain wall, and either poured in place or concrete panels additionally. Next slide, please. So in the upper left, you see the south-facing elevation. This is the the quote unquote front of the building as much as there is one. There is a main entrance door there, or the main entrance door was there. And this is the elevation that will be most visible going northbound on Columbia Pike. And then in the lower right is the vantage from entering the property through the existing driveway. Go to the next slide, please. And these were not in the submission or the staff report. The applicant provided these additional renderings, which show the proposed solar canopy. This is located in the middle of the parking lot. And this will provide additional solar power to the property, and the applicant can provide additional background if they would so choose at this point. Next slide. And then this is the master plan or the concept plan of the landscape. You see there's new hardscaping that goes along the stream to the south of the building and its addition. So they're proposing some trails and statues and interpretive signage along the way. This will also provide circulation to the trailhead, which is accessed there where the cursor is. Again, there is a standalone bathroom proposed to the left of the trailhead entrance. Additional tree plantings are proposed on the lot, and then new walkways. Finally, the applicant proposes to install fencing along Columbia Pike. We've only seen some concept images at this point, but low fencing was how it was described. And then there will be some signage. The applicant indicated that it would have a sculptural component as well at the entrance at Columbia Pike. So we can go to the next slide. And the applicant provided some of these renderings as part of the overall landscape proposal for the site. And we can go to the next slide. So staff finds the location and amount of demolition are appropriate to maintain the historic character of the subject building. We find the location of the proposed addition is sensitive to the building and the larger master plan site, and that the size and massing of the proposed addition and hyphen will not overwhelm the historic building. We also appreciate that the location of the new construction is not going to interrupt the relationship between the two Georgian Revival buildings across the street from one another. So that vista will be maintained as part of this. Next slide. We further find that detailed specifications for the addition's design have not been provided at this point and should be discussed at a subsequent preliminary consultation, and that larger size scale massing materials conversations should be had at this point. Having said that, while we feel that the design of the hyphen and addition appear to be compatible, staff did find that the concrete panel on the south elevation between the glass hyphen and the wood screen wall was somewhat awkward, and recommended a revision either of materials or of orientation, and that point would really improve that vista, particularly because it was so close to the south elevation of the historic building. You can go to the next slide. And that we found that most of the proposed hardscaping would not be highly visible from the right-of-way, in part because so much of it is oriented towards the stream, which is below the building and the street. The proposed bathroom building is far enough away from the historic building that will not significantly impact its character. It also could be removed at a later date without impacting the material or character of the site. The proposed renderings of the solar canopy were submitted after completing the staff report, so staff takes no position at this time as to its appropriateness. And then details for the signage and fencing should be submitted for discussion at a subsequent preliminary consultation, but staff finds that fencing in that location would be appropriate. You can go to the next slide. So again, the questions for the HPC, which were laid out in the staff report, are: does the HPC support enlarging the existing second floor window opening to provide building access from the building addition? The applicant does propose to remove and replace all of the existing windows. What level of window documentation does the HPC find necessary for a full window replacement? Additionally, we request design comments for the hyphen and its proposed addition, the HPC's findings regarding the appropriateness of the proposed materials for the new construction, and the appropriateness of the size of the proposed construction. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Any questions for staff? Okay, if not, I would invite the project representatives to come forward. I have one name. I see that there are more than one person here. The name I have is Mitch Booz? Bose? So anyway, if you could all come forward, if you could, as you've heard the previous one, if you could state your name for the record, state your names for the record into the microphone, that would be great. You'll have 7 minutes for your presentation, and at when you're finished, we will ask you questions. I think we will be asking you questions.
Would it be okay to turn on this screen as well? Sorry.
Yes, do you want us to share out the PowerPoint that you gave before? Great. Yes, we'll broadcast the staff computer, and just let me know when you're ready for me to advance the slides. Can you press it so it turns green? There we go.
Screen's on, right? I'm Mish Bose from Intech.
I'm Angie Barry. I'm a museum management consultant, and I'm working with Spring Song Museum.
Great. And good evening. My name is Rebecca Henson. I'm the executive director and founder of Spring Song Museum. I'd like to thank the HPC staff and the commission for your time this evening and for the opportunity for us to hear your insights and questions on our proposed project. I'm also grateful to our staff, our architectural team, and the staff and leadership of Montgomery Parks for the significant support that a concept of this nature has required. The mission of our nonprofit organization is to create, manage, and operate a museum that connects community and nature through the wonder and wisdom of Rachel Carson. Carson was an American writer. She was a trained biologist and considered by many as the mother of the modern environmental movement. She lived from 1907 to 1964. Most important may be her lens through which she saw the world and her ability to communicate that to the general public. Her perspective of interconnected and interdependent life on Earth and the strength and power that comes from leaning into our connection to place and to one another. She lived her life with clear-eyed wonder and courage, and that in itself is a story that inspires awe. She was a writer for the Baltimore Sun, Atlantic Monthly, New Yorker, but her day job was at Fish and Wildlife Service in Washington, D.C. She was the critically acclaimed and scientifically applauded author of massively popular books, winning the National Book Award in 1952 and publishing Silent Spring in 1962. She defended that book before presidential committees and Congress and passed away from breast cancer a year and a half after its publication. She did all of those things as a resident of Maryland, and particularly Silver Spring. It was a place that she moved to in 1937 for the benefit of her extended family members, her dependents, and for a simpler commute to her government job. Where she lived, the lush and green and vibrant Montgomery County helped to sustain her through life's ups and downs. It helped inspire her writing, and her community here was integral to her work and to her legacy. As the national historian for her former employer, Fish and Wildlife Service, has said, Silver Spring is the perfect place for a museum sharing Carson's message. Burnt Mills East is the proposed location for Spring Song because of its centrality to Carson's story. Next slide. Actually, sorry, I will just point out on this map in the, in the center, off center, she spent, even though she lived in 6 places in Silver Spring and Tacoma Park, she spent the majority of that time in 2 neighborhoods one on the bottom of the screen where she wrote her books on the sea and won the National Book Award, and then at the top of the screen in another neighborhood of Silver Spring called Quaint Acres in White Oak. And then right smack in the middle is where we propose for this museum to be located. Burnt Mills East is also the ideal location because Carson's goal as a writer was to make nature and science accessible. The Northwest Branch, it's 21 miles of trails. The proximity of Burnt Mills East to public transit, the bus rapid transit line is right there, the state highway, and we even have Trader Joe's right next door, which means it's where people are, and that, of course, speaks to her goal of accessibility. She wrote about using the senses in nature, of blending art and science, beauty and curiosity that fosters understanding, learning from one another in our intergenerational community. And she wrote about the importance of knowing our daily world. For example, that the mica that shines all over Burnt Mills is the mineral that shines throughout Silver Spring and that gives it its name. Burnt Mills East is a dramatic and dynamic setting at the geologic fall line, where we go from the Piedmont Plateau to the coastal plain. It emphasizes incessant forces of the earth, the motion and constant building up, breaking down, and the renewal that earth endures and will always endure. It's to us as if this setting at Burnt Mills East were an illustration in one of Carson's books about the story of the earth or the sea or the water cycle or ecology itself. Burnt Mills East finally is a place where we can connect stories of the past with history of the people, the Anacostan people who lived and hunted and fished along the Anacostia River right there, Black communities that lived just north at Stewart Lane, the workers of the many mills, including the Burnt Mills, and then, of course, the Robert B. Morse water filtration facility are all examples of how humans have interacted with place and with nature. So this is all an opportunity for us as a community to connect to place and to each other, to hopefully greet tourists and tell them these stories, and especially for a new generation, for immigrants and first-generation Americans in East County to see through Carson's lens, bridging this art and history and nature in a joyful and very necessary way. Thank you.
Good. I'll try and, could someone tell me what our time is?
You have 4 minutes left. We actually started the timer a little late. You're kind of well past, but there's still 4 minutes left on it.
Okay, thanks.
Should we advance about 3 slides?
Sure. You want me to go to slide 4?
Yeah.
Great.
That should be the easement, yeah.
Okay. Just let me know when you want me to advance the slides.
Okay. Well, we're here to, as the architects, we're here to make you aware of some of the factors that shape the design of the building addition. And I'm going to have to abbreviate a little bit here, but much of this WSSC complex has been removed or altered since the decommissioning of the WSSC facility. But we want to make sure to maintain as much of the East building and its Georgian revival character as possible, and to maintain the historic views and relationship between the two remaining buildings. There are multiple sort of pipes on this project and as many easements, very complicated. And Parks and the Springsong design team negotiated a greatly reduced area of right-of-way for the sewer line. But nonetheless, if you look at the slide that is up right now, the green is really the easement. And if you can imagine our building addition as the L that moves along that, was constricted by that and the need for parking. So in essence, the building shape has a lot to do with those building restriction lines. I'd like to touch on the size of the museum. Quite simply, the Springsong team and museum experts have really told us that 5,000 square feet is considered sort of the minimum square footage for the usable space to actually have a museum like this one. The addition design incorporates a range of materials to emphasize and define its various elements, but probably the one that raises the most, I say, need for explanation or discussion is the portion of the facade which is concrete. And I would only defend that, I guess is the right word, is that it is concrete, which is one of the materials in the palette that are already there, that the aerators are made of concrete, And this concrete wall quotes that material and reuses it on the outside, on the south, on the, this is actually west side of the facade. As on the east side, there's the corresponding wall that's what's left of the aerator, which we've incorporated into the hyphen portion of the design. And happy to answer any other questions about that when the questions start. There are a variety of other materials that we're using: glass, wood, concrete, and the existing brick is there. So I would say that's it from my standpoint. Happy to answer any questions about the architecture, facades, floor plans, et cetera. Haven't really talked about the landscaping. And Catherine, when the slides come up, or if you have any questions, we'll weigh in.
Yeah, if we could just advance to the next, to 2 site plans ahead. Rebecca, that would be, I think that's 2 slides.
And there's only about 20 seconds left.
Yeah. I just wanted to.
I'll give you a little extra time if you
Okay.
need it.
If you go back 1 slide, please, because we just want to clarify one thing about the site is that the SHA, so State Highway Administration, has co-opted, I don't know, claimed this eastern portion of the historic sedimentation basin, which is currently the parking lot, for a stormwater mitigation project of their own. So I believe that's probably already been approved by you all, but it's something that we're incorporating into our landscape design with a bridge across the top of it. So that's not technically part of our project, but is something that is in the future of what will happen on the site. And the only other clarification I think we wanted to mention was that the building has been vacant for approximately 60 years and does have, lead and asbestos issues. So, we're excited to move this project forward so that to bring new life to this structure.
Some of the drawings seem to be washed out. It's some lines are missing. I'm not sure why. Our originals don't look like that, but they're. If you have any questions about that, that's a question. It's fine.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
I
Okay.
think we're out of time.
Any questions? Commissioner Doman.
This is Commissioner Doman. I guess I'm a little bit confused. I'm looking at figure 3, I guess, of a staff report, and the new addition that goes on in the photograph or the rendering that you have appears to be wood, but it's not wood, is it?
The cladding at this point is shown as wood or some substitute that looks like wood, of which we are working with a sustainability consultant where there are myriad questions about the origin of materials and their recyclable ability and any others. So I'm certainly accepting any input, but if you're questioning whether we would use wood, we would.
No, but when you talk about concrete, there's an issue about the concrete.
I think you have the wrong facade. It's the other side of the building. There.
Oh, it's on the riverside, as
It's
opposed to being
actually
on the
sort
street
of
side, in the back of it.
Colesville Road, actually.
Oh, yeah, okay, depends. It's because it sits at an angle, so which is the street, okay, I understand. Which way is north and south is confusing. But what I see in here, in this picture, it looks like it's a big wood wall. Is that, when you pull in, off of Coastal Road, you pull in, and you can see where the entrance is and the hyphen is, and then to the left there's this big wooden wall. Is
Right.
that envisioned to be a wood wall right there? Is that what you have?
They would be vertical wood elements, yes, altogether, yeah.
Do you have
Wood siding.
like solid cedar or mahogany or something? Is that what, or don't you know yet?
We don't know yet.
Okay, but basically, it's just one big blank wall. It's what we're looking at right there, right?
Yep.
Okay, it's kind of strange. Okay, and my other question: who owns this? Who? I know you're with Spring Song,
Montgomery Parks owns the
but
property.
Montgomery, who's paying for? This is off the topic, but I'm wondering how is this all going to happen? Who's the main person? Is it
Commissioner Doman, I might recommend that the applicants are, a lot of the funding for this is still being pulled together. There's a lot of players here. I wouldn't necessarily expect them to be able to answer to all of those questions right now. So I think in the future, when they come back, that could certainly be a topic of conversation about how the deal is being put together and everything for the museum
I was just wondering
board, but
who
right.
the applicant was.
So the applicant, again, is Montgomery Parks. The applicant is Montgomery Parks. And Spring Song Museum is a partner. This type of partnership arrangement is common. I mean, not super common, but it has happened before with Montgomery Parks properties where there is an operator that will program a site. So Spring Song Museum will be programming this part of the Robert Morris filtration plant, which is going to continue to be owned by Montgomery Parks after that. So we haven't had a lot of these come to the commission before, and we can give you some more detail about how that's going to be worked out, but a lot of the details are still being worked out, frankly, with the commission right now.
Okay, and I drove by it. Actually, I drove in, I parked the car, and I walked around, okay? And I saw the whole thing. There's a little small house at the far, I don't know, at the northeast end, I guess, down there. It's like with a little pointed roof on it. What is that, and is that going to stay? Yes, you're shaking your head, yes.
Yes, that's part of the historic's water filtration plant site. It's a little pump building, and we intend to maintain that as part of the project and potentially use it as a staging site for outdoor classroom activities near the trailhead.
And you envision some kind of a composting toilet out there too?
Yes, that's the little freestanding building towards the east of the sedimentation pond. That's the proposed location to facilitate hikers using facilities when they're visiting the site.
I understand. Oh, okay, it's just,
Could I just say something in response to your, I think, perceived concern about the wood wall as you come into the parking lot? It's not just a wood wall, right? The cornice lines of the hyphen and the addition are, responding to the cornice line of the historic project, and there are clear story windows also. But primarily, it would be sort of a wood vertical siding element as we are proposing it, because it's sort of the service side of the building with the big reveal on the other side being the glassy wall that faces the stream side.
yeah, I think, I mean, I know why, it's kind of to give you some privacy in the building, because you got the busy highway on the other side of the parking lot. I think that's, is that, you're thinking why you want that big wall there? There's no windows. I mean, you got the little clear story windows up high, but you don't have any other windows in it. It seems kind of stark. Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Can you talk a little bit about why why the big concrete wall is there? Sorry. It looks like it's hiding something. It's sort of, I'm expecting to see this sort of glassy hyphen, and then there's this very freestanding big thing that looks like it's covering something up. So can you talk a little bit about what that what the strategy was there.
Well, first of all, I think that that material which we chose to show is the same sort of concrete that you would see on the other side of the building that's part of the existing artifact. The development of this wall actually began with it having a large circular sort of embossed logo. And we got some feedback from Parks who were a little concerned that if we made a logo so permanent as that then if, years from now, they would have to own the building, that they wouldn't know what to do with that logo. But there are other ways of doing that. One thing I should mention, too, is that the pine tree, there's a very tall pine tree sort of in front of that wall, which is going to be coming down. So it exposes that wall actually even more. But this is a contemporary edition, and it does make use of clean and some might think stark, but proportioned properly and the right materials, hopefully a beautiful building.
Commissioner Dominiani.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I appreciate the history and background and also the renderings. I think it helps us wrap our head around it. And I'm familiar with the site too, having driven by a few times. I have a question, if you don't mind, about the size and scale of the hyphen connecting the two buildings. I understand the horizontal line responding to the lower edge of the roof line of the historic structure, but I wondered if the hyphen was kind of at its minimal height it needed to be to accommodate 2 floors of walking across the bridge, or if in fact it could be, if you had considered reducing it to sort of play with the scale of it, minimize it relative to the historic structure, if you could speak about that. And then also, I understand the location setback on the opposite side of that hyphen where the curve is, but if you had considered perhaps like pushing it back relative to that front facade of the historic structure as well, just breaking. If you could walk us through that discussion, I think we'd benefit from it as we seek to understand kind of the massing and provide comment on it. Thank you.
Well, we can't really lower the hyphen any because we have a green roof on top of that. So the roof structure is going to be deeper, thicker than average. As you can imagine, any museum honoring Rachel Carson is going to be a sustainable building, and green roofs are part of that. And we do, in fact, need both stories to connect to the hyphen just to make the building work. There was another question in there.
Excuse me, how far forward the edge of the hyphen sort of...
towards the parking lot?
Towards the parking lot, kind of above where it says museum in letters, how far forward that is relative to
But you're talking about pushing it away from there.
I was curious if it had been considered or how you arrived at that arrangement. I thought perhaps we've seen before sort of setting it back relative to the front plane of the historic structure, for example, to break it up more.
It's just tight, between the parking lot and getting cars in and out, and the parking lot design, which has to accommodate fire and rescue. We don't have any room to do that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Just to hold on one second here. Let's see if anyone else. Commissioner Burdett?
My question isn't related so much to your building as I recall several years ago there was some significant flooding in this location. Is your building designed to withstand the flooding of the size that happened 5-10 years ago, something like that? Yeah. Or what plans do you have to mitigate any damage from possible flooding?
We're not in the floodplain, actually, this particular building, but we're going to be held to some standards for the existing basement that's under the building now, that any sort of electrical equipment, anything that's down there has to be up above 3 feet. So that, and it can't really be used for anything else. But because we're not in the floodplain, we haven't needed to make any accommodations for that.
And during that flood, do you want to speak to
Yeah,
that?
the building itself tends not to flood. It's the other side of Route 29, as you would guess, being close to the dam and, the water there, that does flood more. But when you look at aerial pictures of the floods that have occurred there, this building kind of stands as a little island. But that being said, it is something, I'm a resident of the neighborhood right behind where this is, and so I've seen firsthand flooding, and I would go out there and watch sometimes too to see the patterns of the water and what happens. And again, it would remain as this island more or less. We have our landscape architect firm that we've hired is working, and they have lots of experience with flood-prone areas. They're working with the city of Ellicott City right now in their big, yes, kind of rebuild and rethinking of their relationship to the river that runs through Ellicott City. So it's something that is really front of mind, at least for me too, as a resident. And because I know that the concerns of the community there, that's the first thing that we think about, actually. And the other thing, with climate change, we want to make sure that we are also almost a demonstration for climate adaptation and climate resilience as well. So we look forward to, as we progress with these plans, to significantly bolstering that part of our plans. But.
Thank you. I have one other quick question. I understand the museum's about Rachel Carson, which is great, but this was a pumping station, and other than the aerators, I think, or is there any other attempt to replicate or refer to what was here before? Because I frankly, I don't know what the pumping station would have looked like, and it might be all underground or just not very visible to anybody. Is that kind of where it was? What was going on with it?
When it was in operation, the current parking lot was a sedimentation basin, so it was essentially a small lake in the backyard, and it was part of the filtration process. So that's now gone, obviously.
That explains it. Thank you.
And in our interpretive plan as well, we will, as part of the other stories related to the land and the water there, make sure to tell that story because, again, as a resident right there, I didn't know the deep story of the water filtration and, like Misha mentioned earlier, the significance to the county's development.
Commissioner Doman.
This is Commissioner Doman. People that know me, I'm an avid hiker, and I think this is really interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I was up by Laytonsville. They have the Rachel Carson Conservation Area, and I've hiked that whole area up there. And I understand the plan is to tie all that for 25 miles or 21 miles all the way down to Washington, D.C., which I think will go through the Song Spring area right there. I've been up and down Colesville Road. It's very heavily trafficked, lots of cars on it. Pulling in, I don't know, I had to go past it, turn around and come back and made a U-turn and come into it. It's very difficult to get into that parking lot. And maybe, I don't know, traffic, there's enough traffic lights up and down the road, you don't need another traffic light, but it is difficult to get in, and if you're trying to pull out and want to go south, it's impossible, basically, to get out of the place. Very, very tight location. And being that I'm a hiker, the southbound one is like 2.9 miles, and going north is like 7 or 8 miles going north on the trails up that way. But I don't think you can get from the parking lot that you envision over Colesville Road to get to the north side. I mean, I was wondering, is there any way you could envision in your trails a underpass? And somewhere there has to be, the stream goes underneath there, I know that. So a walking path to allow you to park your car, do the southern trail, then walk underneath Colesville Road, then do the northern trail. Could that be something you could also incorporate into your designs? Thank you.
I've definitely been envisioning that for about 12 years, because as a mom of young boys too, I know exactly, with Colesville Road right there and the speeds that that cars can go, it makes for a very unpleasant and potentially dangerous situation. So there is a way to, you walk up more or less in the direction of Trader Joe's and then cross at a crosswalk and then come back, but that does take you out of the hiking mood, perhaps. But we have thought about, ways to work. It's a state highway, and anytime that we get the chance, we do talk with state officials, others, about ways to make this entire area of Burnt Mills, east and west, and the residences and businesses there, a safer place for pedestrians and more enjoyable, and a place that you want to stay. So an underpass or a pedestrian overpass is definitely in my dreams, but it's also something that we advocate for and have spoken about on safety walks that we've been part of with other representatives from that area. But I think it's critical, but for now, it's not part of our own planning.
Any other questions? If not, I think we'll begin our deliberations. And if you've not done this before, what we try to do is get a project from this stage to something that we can approve as a historic area work permit. I think the staff believes that we might need to have another preliminary to sort of flesh out some of the things that are not quite there yet. But I would like to kick this off. I actually am really delighted with this. I actually retired from the National Park Service, the sister agency that Rachel Carson was in, and I think something like this for her in this county is absolutely appropriate, and I think you're on the right track. I like the concepts you have. I even like, we haven't seen that, we just saw today the idea of a solar panel, but I think she would approve of that. I think she would think that's important to have with the site. I don't know that the design is exactly what we want, but I think you're definitely on the right track. I think there are some things that can be probably fleshed out a little bit that might be more appropriate, but I think you're on the right track. The only thing that I really don't like very much is that concrete wall that we've talked about. And I think if we can somehow maybe tame that down a little bit, or maybe use other materials, I think that would be appropriate. But otherwise, I really think you're on the right track here. So thank you so much for the work you've done, and I really look forward to seeing this in the future. Got other ones here. Commissioner Domeniani.
I'd like to echo Chair Sutton and say how delighted we are with this project. I think it's excellent. But running through, we're charged as well with providing feedback along the lines of questions here from staff, so I thought I would run through my opinions quickly on each of them. I support enlarging that second-story window to allow for access through the bridge in the hyphen. I think that's completely appropriate considering the needs of the new addition. I'd also like to comment that I think the hyphen actually, it's sized appropriately, and I think the addition is as well. One thing you may consider is in the materials, I understand that the large concrete wall is responding to the sort of segments of walls where the aerator would have been, but perhaps there's a way to play with the size and proportion of what that aerator wall is, considering its size kind of being something like 6 or 7 feet tall and then that much larger wall. And there might be a way to incorporate some of the materials that we're more familiar with elsewhere in the structure, such as brick or perhaps some elements of white paint and that type of thing. There could be a way. I think that the design is certainly a departure in form from the historic structure, something I think it designates it as something separate, but perhaps with the design being such a departure in form, perhaps materials could also play with each other a bit more closely. I think that might be a way to tie them together a bit. But in general, I'm very excited for the project. Thanks so much for coming in for the preliminary, and I think it's on a great pathway so far. I'll leave it to the architects to dial that in a bit.
Commissioner Burdett?
Actually, Commissioner Domeniani answered or made my comment for me, so I don't have any. Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Dome. I'm not sure about all the wood wall that faces outward. Being some of my background, I've done a lot of carpentry work, and right now, as we see it, it looks like a nice reddish brown, like a teak or like a mahogany or something like that. But all these woods age and they will turn gray. And what we see in these pictures, it's not going to look like that in 5 years. It's going to be an awful gray color. And I'm not sure what you would use. I mean, in the sense of we're thinking about conservation, the woods that would hold up are not native to this area. You know, we're going to have to go out and get some Brazilian teak or some kind of species of wood that would look good and maintain its color and maintain its stability and trueness and everything else. But to me, if we do that, that's kind of going against the whole idea of environmental friendly and doing things that we have. So I'm concerned about this wood. I've, as you probably maybe not know, I've done a lot of work on the Frank Lloyd Wright house that's in Bethesda, famous house that's owned by Tom Wright right now. And that wood is all mahogany. You can't get that particular mahogany anymore. At one time, 20 years ago, it was perfectly beautiful, reddish brown. It's now a dirty gray. And it is very difficult to maintain the color and the stability. The mahogany is very stable, but if we start going to exotic woods, to me, we're kind of violating some of the principles that Rachel Carson has put down, that we try to stay local and develop this area. And I think it's a beautiful area. I've hiked some of the stream, and it's really amazing how you can go up and down that road and all you see is houses and cars and traffic, and in 5 minutes you can be in wilderness. So I think it's a great idea, great location, but I'm still not convinced all of this wood is the proper thing to put on the front of this building. So something to think about. Thank you.
Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. Again, I don't want to repeat the same thing. I do appreciate what you're doing. I think it's a great use of the building. I will want to see a little bit more on the solar canopy. You know, I think that the devil's in the details on that, and it could look really fantastic, and it also might not look like it belongs there. So I think more on that. The fencing as well. I think you said low fencing, or staff said low fencing. We get in a lot of discussion about fencing. So I think understanding what that is it somehow, you know, blocking the view? It sounds, if it's low, probably not, but we're going to want to see that as a follow-up. I'm okay with a full window replacement. I think the hyphen is fine. I think in general, the size of the addition, I don't have any issues with that. There is a visual I just can't get out of my head, and maybe once I say it, you may have the same problem. That concrete does look like a sound barrier wall in a highway. And so I'm thinking, I guess there's been a few other comments. What could you do with that to, you know, to make it look? I'm okay with the contemporary. I think the contemporary addition in itself is a wonderful idea. It absolutely distinguishes old from new, and I think that's appropriate. But I've struggled a little bit with that wall as well. So, but other than that, I like what I see, and I appreciate you bringing it in. Thanks.
Anyone else? Commissioner Radu? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll come to you. Don't worry.
Just one more comment about the parking lot, the PV system there. I mean, I looked at the figure 3 in the report, which is that view of the historic house and the addition. And if you were to have a covered parking just in front of that, I mean, this is, anyway, it's a high view, but I think that will completely be changed, I guess, from for people who travel to the site. So I would like to see more like how close you're proposing to come to this, not to obscure the views to the sense, so to keep maybe the canopy a little further.
Your question is about the solar canopy and its relationship to the building as you come in the parking lot?
Right,
Okay.
right. And I don't know I understand fully the bullet number 2 on the screen, which says what level of window documentation is necessary for HPC to consider a full window replacement. Are we talking about just the window that we're removing, or is it a full replacement for all windows in the house?
Currently, the existing windows there are builder grade, recently installed windows, and we're intending to replace them with a much higher quality window.
Okay.
SDL at a minimum.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nasser.
Make it very quick. Commissioner Radum read my mind. You have this beautiful historic house, this beautiful contemporary addition, and I think that solar canopy, I understand why you're doing it, but it would be very distracting. Imagine in your first rendering, if you just placed that canopy there, it would kind of take away the appreciation of these two structures coming together. That's my only comment.
Since everybody else talked, but yeah.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Sorry, it's Commissioner Pelletier. Everybody has said everything else that I already said, but I do think the canopy looks like it was pulled from like a Revit library and dropped into the parking lot, and I think it could be really great. It just doesn't look like it relates at the moment, and I just can't get past that concrete wall. I love all the rest of it. I think the entry is really awesome, but I keep wanting that corner to be transparent. You know, you've got these two very, from the entry side, you've got these two very opaque structures that are very different and are kind of talking to each other, and then you've got this, yeah, this highway partition up on one side that I don't really understand. But the rest of it, I think it's great. I think it's a great use of the space. Yeah, I don't live too far away. I think this would be a great amenity, and I carry on. I think it's great.
Could I just get a little clarity on that? The solar array is as a renewable resource, is going to be essential to our certifications. So it's an important piece just on the energy side, but what we hear is that maybe it could be more sculptural or something.
Can I say, yeah, this is Mr. Pelletier. Yeah, I just think it looks like it wasn't designed. I think it just doesn't match with the detailing and I think a lot of thought that's obviously gone into the rest of the design. It sort of looks like you took it from another model and said, we want to get some, you know, a solar array in here, and we might put it here. It just looks like it needs more thought. And the materiality could be very similar to the addition and that sort of thing. But no, I'm not saying take it out. I'm saying it just needs to be a little more integrated.
Okay, I think you've gotten our input. I think we all agree that this is a wonderful project. Needs a little bit more design work and care, and you can work with staff on that. All of the comments that we've made will be on the record, and you can get that from the staff. But I think you're well on your way, and I look forward to seeing this as a completed historic area work permit very soon. So I don't know that we absolutely have to have another preliminary. I think there's some things that would be useful. I'll leave that up to staff, but I think you're on your way. I'm sorry. Sorry?
No, I'm sorry, Chair Sutton, only because we haven't really discussed the material palette with them and, you know, with some of the questions from the commissioners about what's appropriate for the palette and having them bring materials to you. There's a lot more still to work out, so that was the reason we thought a second might be appropriate.
Absolutely fine, absolutely fine. But I think you're on the right track, so we like to see projects like this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, next item on our agenda, we're not doing the draft illustrated design guidelines. That's been deferred. Anyone like to make a motion for the December 4 minutes?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I read those minutes, and I was also there at
Oh, goodness.
at that meeting. And
I was too.
I would make a motion that we approve those minutes.
I have an addition to make to it.
Well, first of all, we have to have a second, which I will second.
Okay.
Okay, now, we will ask you what your addition is.
It's really, really minor.
Okay,
On your second page, the minutes are identified as the November 13th meeting. And it should have been the December 4th.
Thank you, we'll correct that.
It's a very minor. But anyway,
do you
that's the only
accept, do
correction.
you accept the amendment?
I accept.
And I accept it as a second, so thank you. And are there any commission items? Yes, I'm sorry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Thank
Mrs.
you.
Commissioner, I'd abstain. I wasn't there.
Well, that's okay. We have 7 ayes and 1 abstention. Next item on our agenda is commission items. Any commission items? Any staff items?
As we discussed at this work session and the last one, we were talking about a winter-spring HPC retreat. So it may be better to get the staff, dates in February and March that do not work for you, that you know you're going to be traveling, you know you're going to be off. We're looking at weeks in between the meeting dates. The 2025 meeting dates are online. So if you could let us know, maybe before the next meeting in January or in the new year, so we can come with some dates, talk about it at the next work session, and get that on the calendar.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, our meeting is adjourned.